My name is Mimi Shulman. I'm a 71-year-old deaf artist, hard of hearing since birth. I have been making stuff since I was 8, when I used to cut up shoeboxes and make little dioramas in my mother's basement. The dioramas would be fairy tale fantasy imagery, kings and queens and thrones, and I would color them in with crayons, and so I knew how to have fun. So I continued to do dioramas and went to school, and I learned jewelry making and construction processes. I spent 7 years in art college, and it was good. I learned a lot of stuff and started to make my own line of silver jewelry and also costume jewelry. And my main skill was wax carving, so I've always thought of myself as a wax carver. I continued to do my own artwork, but I also was working in film, making film props, and I started in 1979 working in film. Up until 3D printers came along, I was pretty busy. And so I'm very comfortable with my art's voice. I'm happy. It makes me happy. I work, I find my joy there, I play. And because now there's assistive devices and note takers at university, I went back to school when I turned 61, and I went to Ryerson and I got my degree in sociology. I was very happy. And I wanted to continue on with my work because as a person with a disability, I've always been very aware of injustices in society, and so that's why I took the sociology degree. But I wanted to continue on and combine artwork with sociology, and I applied at York University for the grad degree, and I did a study of creativity, 2 years. The transformation over that 2-year period has been incredible. I had a supervisor, Professor Peter Timmerman, who was awesome and mentored me through understanding creative processes and becoming more introspective about my own work, and he was really patient. It was hard work. You know, when you're introspective about your art's voice, you touch on a lot of trauma from different parts of your life, and the trauma is what produces the artwork. I've been making dioramas since I was 8, and he kept saying, "Why boxes? Why boxes?" And I finally figured out just a few months ago, boxes, because when you're deaf, it's not just communication, it's environmental sounds as well. And so my experience of my life, which has informed my art, is the feeling of being in a little box because you can't connect to the outside world through environmental sounds. Communication is a big part of it, but it's also how I felt. And through my study of creativity over the past 2 years, I have actually developed a bigger voice, a more connected. I guess because my supervisor, Peter, introduced me to theorists and other artists that I had never connected to before. I've always been very enclosed in my little world, my little dioramas. And so for my thesis piece, I created a pyramid which represents hierarchies in society. The front of the pyramid, it consists of, yes, dioramas, of course, because that's what I do. And they start at the top with gated communities. So it's a solid piece with a black iron gate, and the little plaque has a zip code on it. I researched the wealthiest neighborhoods in North America, and I found the zip code. It's Atherton, California, and so it has an address. The drawers underneath, for the most part, open up. And the top drawer is the church. I wanted to depict how art has been appropriated by the different levels of status in society. I'm sure I put that right. The church has a facade of wealth and gold and opulence. Perhaps they see this as connecting them to God. And so inside the little diorama of the church is the front facade of the pews and their parishioners sitting there, and in the back, this is like a little back room, there is a pile of gold coins and a little carpet on the floor, and underneath the carpet in a corner is a small child huddled, their hands over their face in shame, with a broom, because the abuse of children by the church and has swept under the carpet. And I needed to say that. So there's that drawer. In terms of power in society, the church has a lot of power. The 1%, yes, and then the church. Underneath that, there's a drawer of wealthy art collectors. And as I was making these dioramas, the work that I was doing evolved as there's something about handwork when you connect your mind and your hands. It helps organize things. And so as I was making, my tools and my media inspired me and moved me forward with my designs. And so that the drawer of the wealthy, I have artwork on the walls. I tried to make some little pieces of furniture that looked maybe expensive. But the artwork was important to me. I wanted to depict how they collect art. And rather than using art in the picture frames on the walls, I chose pictures of the values that these people held. And so over the mantelpiece is Leona Helmsley in a very fancy frame. And Leona Helmsley was the Queen of Mean, and she was an art collector. And these people, they accumulate art, and it gives them social capital and economic capital. It enhances them. But what does it do for the artist? You know, what does it do for the arts world? And I researched. I wanted to make sure that my artwork in that particular room represented the values, and I researched wealthy men accumulating art, and I found a great picture of Ronald Lauder from Estee Lauder, who had just purchased that Gustav Klimt painting for $11 million, and he's standing in front of it looking very aloof and almost looking down. The camera angle for that was perfect. And so I had the art represent those values, and that was good. It was a better statement than just putting art on the walls. The next drawer down is middle class. My original concept for that drawer had been to show an outdoor scene, because I think middle class values are wrapped up in property and cars. And I wanted to show property and cars, but the size of the windows that were part of the pyramid, the scale was all wrong. And so as I was working, it occurred to me to make the window looking out rather than looking in, and was looking out onto the backyard. So that would represent property. I couldn't fit cars in anywhere, as much as I like them. But the backyard has it's a kind of a middle-class backyard. It has a barbecue, and it has a little pool for the kids, and it starts to show some humanity. There's food on the plates, and there's a suggestion of children somewhere. I looked up middle class. I just Googled middle class art, and there was a lot of links to folk art, and I'm thinking that middle class can't afford the art, the collectible art. That the elite can afford. And so they tend to buy things they like. Folk art, sure, that's fine. I made the curtains out of a piece of cloth that was a Manet painting. And so the curtains represent, everyone can have art hanging in their living room. And so there are references to art also. Um, the longing for better art and the purchase of art that's just folk art, just things they like. And so there's that little blue cat on the windowsill. I liked making that. That was good. So that's middle class. The next drawer down, which is probably where I am, which is the working poor. It's the facade is brick and cement, and I realized as I was making it, it's very much like where I live. On the inside, I've got a little table. I made the stools for the table out of Scrabble tiles because I really like Scrabble. I made a Q and a U, two A's, AQ and AU. That was my little joke. The art for the working poor is a lot more personal. I really can't afford anything. Not good art. I don't mean that good art. I mean expensive collectible art. That's what I mean. They have my taste, kitsch. I like kitsch. It kind of pokes fun at the pretensions of fine art. I like it. So if there's kitsch on the walls, there's rhinestones. There's a little cowboy with rhinestones, like a rhinestone cowboy. It was good, and the door opens and closes. That was really important to me because for people who don't have a lot of money, what's valuable to them is their connection with the people who come and go in their lives. They have people come in and they sit and chat in the kitchen, and the door being able to open and close meant a lot to me. Outside of the door, at the back, where you really can't see it, is a bike leaning against the wall and a little hallway. So that's a good one. The bottom is the poor and homeless. That drawer doesn't open because they are invisible in society, and their artwork is graffiti on the walls. On the right hand, it says "The end is in sight" in chalk, INCITE. Just a little, nudge to a little activism. And so there's that, and it, like I say, it doesn't open, and it's opaque, so you can't see them. From there, I wanted to do one side panel with the destruction of the environment, and on top of that, the corporations that are responsible for all of this destruction. I have Peabody, which is coal, Exxon, which is oil, Pfizer, which is pharmaceuticals, and Lockheed Martin, weapons. And the windows of each of those buildings are transparencies of photographs that depict the destruction of the environment that these particular corporations are responsible for. The panel underneath is built on a photograph of a beautiful outdoor scene. And I had to smear, it's supposed to be oil, but it's actually Vaseline and oil paint, black oil paint. It's like finger painting, and I covered this beautiful environment with dead animals and photos of storms and fires and climate change, and everything is covered with this little coating of not oil, faux oil. So I have that. The buildings lift off just because I wanted to show what the environment looks like before it's destroyed. It was really hard, but I had to put the buildings there because the buildings connect the environment with the wealthy people in the dioramas at the front. Moving around to the back of the pyramid is a corkboard, and the corkboard is divided down the middle by a wedge of money. On the corkboard on the side closest to the environment, the destroyed environment, is a place where people can interact, and they can pin the news of the day, headlines, whatever seems relevant in politics and the environment. On the other side of the wedge is a space on the corkboard for people to pin art if they make a little drawing or something. There's actually a piece of the of this diorama that I don't have at the moment, which is a little school desk filled with art supplies. And when the artwork is displayed, when the pyramid is displayed, it will include the school desk with the art supplies, and people will be invited to make something, to be inspired to draw something or write something or sculpt something. So I want this piece to be interactive. I want people to understand that creativity counts, that it's puts soul into society, and we're really parched for soul right now. Things are kind of falling apart. So that's the back. Now, what happened as I was building this piece is that I felt personally transformed by my connection to the symbolism that I was creating. And I was surprised because the final panel turned up. It's like, I don't know where these symbols come from. You get fed. Most artists will tell you, stuff it just turns up, and you work with it. You don't ignore it. You look at it, you play with it, and you make it, or you paint it. And so this final panel turned up, and it was an outdoor grassy lawn with a tree in the middle, and hanging from the tree is a swing, and there's a little girl on the swing. And in my vision of this panel, there was a little teddy bear in the grass, and there was some small truck, like a little toy truck. And as I was making those pieces, I thought, oh my God, that's my sun porch where I'm sitting right now with my collection of toy trucks. And the little teddy bear is on the floor in one of my dioramas. And I thought, I've just created myself. I have recreated myself as a little girl on a swing. As I was making the tree, it was just the connection with transformation was so it's blatant. It was so obvious. As I was making it, I was just sort of shaking my head with how can this be happening? Where does it come from? Who feeds us this? The tree I was making, I took up felting. I thought, well, there's a process I've never learned. So I took a course in felting, and that whole panel is felted. My friend John painted the background because I can't paint. The tree that I was making, it was very branchy on one side and not so branchy on the other side, and I was concerned about that. And I went over and said to my friend Nancy, I don't know. It's kind of busy on this side, and I don't want to make it that busy. On the other side, it's branchy, and I thought branchy's not the right word. So I came home and I looked up branchy, and as it turned out, branchy was the right word. That's what trees are, they're branchy. But it had another meaning, and that was systems of information. And I thought, wow, that's me at school. That's me at school. So this little girl represented a transformation from my decades of making Kewpie dolls, where I was still a little girl playing in the carnival, to now having worked through all that through my artwork. And now I'm free of that, and I'm at school, and I'm learning things, and I'm very happy. So that's where I am.